prosperity has to have a piece of economic understanding.
Sure.
And now I'll give you an example. I'm a bias anyway, because being a former chief financial officer, I think you need a basic understanding of finance.
Sure.
And one of the things that I try and do is teach financial literacy so that there's some stability and predictability, and then that leads to a better economy. So yes, I definitely think prosperity includes having some semblance of economic security.
I'm intrigued by a comment that you just made about financial literacy. And when you look at what's happened in this country in the last couple of years because of derivatives and the idea of financial products being developed that, in all honesty, people didn't understand, my observation as a layperson is that it created an environment in which people who should have known better were too afraid to admit that they didn't know what the hell was going on. So I'd love for you to speak to a little bit, as someone with a strong financial foundation, your perspective on why financial literacy is so critical and what happens when people who aren't financially literate are allowed to engage in free markets.
Why financial literacy is so critical is that if you live in today's world, you have to understand business. Now, obviously, there's some people who are in academics and also in government, but business really fuels a lot of the taxes that are paid to government. In the U.S., for example, there's 50% of the people that don't pay taxes, but there's another 50% that pay a whole lot that fuels government, and as well as academics. As I think about your question, because I'm thinking also about an earlier question that you had asked.
Well, we'll come back to
okay. To me, financial literacy empowers you. So here at Kin Global, we've heard people from Turkey, from Liberia, from U.S. The thing that all three of those people have in common is they have to understand what fuels their for-profit or their non-for-profit organization. And there's some real basic things that are important to know in financial literacy. And I've taught a course around the world for one client where we talked to human resource professionals. They'd walk in on the first day not knowing what net present value was. By the third morning, they are computing net present value. They have a sense of, oh yeah, I'd rather have my dollar today than 5 years from now.
Sure.
So the whole concept of time value of money and how to really compute it and understand it, we can teach it in a very short period of time to people who say, I have no math skills. I hear that a lot. People say, oh yeah, I wish I did understand finance, but I don't have any math skills.
Without taking into account that it's not the math skills,
it's not math.
It's common sense.
A lot of it is common sense. And getting over intimidation. One of the things I love to tell people is read the proxy of an organization. It's like the People magazine of business. You find out who has the power in an organization by what they're being paid and what the compensation scheme is and what the values are. I mean, the proxy is a fascinating document. At least I find it fascinating.